Morning, Eloise. How are you doing?
Good morning, Charles and Bob. Great. How are you all doing?
So far, so good. It's
Good.
Friday. We made it.
Right.
So I'm just going to forewarn you.
Bob, you're muted.
Am I muted?
No,
No.
there we go.
Oh, Bob.
There we go.
Okay. I was going to forewarn you that evidently over in the park behind me, they are cutting down some trees. So every once in a while, there's some loud crashing sounds around here.
There won't be one coming down through your roof, will there?
No, they're further away than that. So that's good. Yeah, I don't think they're going to be dropping any trees on the house. I hope.
Good. If not, we'll dial in again.
Well, one never really knows, but yeah, they're not that close. So, and besides, I've got about 100-foot drop off out here behind the house to stop trees from falling on top of it. So.
Good barrier.
Yeah.
Charles, you have got to visit Sweetwater Creek State Park. It is so beautiful out there. You have to take a trail, which is about a 5-minute walk, I guess, down to the springs. It's like rapids. You go to the mill. It's beautiful there. It would be a wonderful place to do some plein air painting too. And it's not really crowded.
Yeah. Well, it just so happens, depending on what the weather's like, maybe this weekend, probably, maybe Sunday, something like that, I might head over there. If not, then I may head over there on Tuesday when I have kind of a studio day.
Right.
And try to, put something together real quick and demo it.
And you have to go to the part where the ranger office is, I think. It's not where the lakes are. It's around behind on the other side of them. But it's you go to the office entrance. There is a $5 parking fee.
Okay.
Oh, that's
You too, Bob.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you this. If you already have a parking sticker for the state parks.
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
Yeah. All right.
What other state parks do you visit in Georgia?
Oh.
You got a sticker, so you must visit. You have a sticker.
Yeah, I go to all kinds of them, but, particularly like ones here along the Chattahoochee River.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, because I'll go over there and walk sometimes or, paint, do various things. So, yeah, and that, you can buy as a senior, you can buy a lifetime sticker for like $80.
Good to know.
Yeah.
No, you can also go to the library and get a park pass. Check it out just like a book, and then you don't have to pay anything.
Okay. You mean they check them out
like a book,
like temporary use? Really? Huh.
Yes, I've never used it, but I call them and they say they have them. You have to check for each library to see if they have them.
Huh. I've never heard that before.
Me either.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
another non-fungible token.
There we go. All right. So you guys, happy Friday, first of all 4 of you. Where is everybody? Jeez. Okay. I guess
we're still a few minutes early.
Yeah, we got a few minutes. Okay. Yeah. I guess I'm getting in a hurry. I got up at 5 this morning, so,
Got up late then, huh?
No, that's kind of a roundabout time,
I was up at 4:30, so.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of getting adapted to this daylight savings time, that it's staying darker longer, so I'm sleeping in a little bit longer. But, that'll probably go away in a few months, as the light changes. So anyway, so we're going to talk about some drawing stuff today. And I've got a real brief, and I mean real brief, little video. And then I pulled some things off of Facebook from a variety of people that I know that had samples of their drawings online. And so I've downloaded a few of those, and we'll kind of go through them and talk about them. You know, the good, the bad, the ugly, you know, all that fun stuff. You know, that should keep us busy for a good, at least an hour, if not more. And then I got some drawings and things from various people this morning. We had one or two things that I've still got kind of in the queue that we were going to look at from people who had submitted stuff, and then they weren't in class, so we didn't really talk about it. So we'll look at some of that stuff this afternoon. Yeah. Anyway. All right. Well, it's 10 o'clock, and I'm going to get started. Okay. So, and I guess they'll show up when they show up. Okay. So I'm going to start off with this video, and there's no dialogue to it. It's just a guy who is working. I think he's working at a variety of media, mainly graphite. And it's interesting because he's actually, in some places, it appears that he's actually airbrushing graphite onto the surface of his paper. Never seen that before, but you know, it was kind of interesting. Yeah. So anyway, we're gonna get rocking and rolling with that, and just sit back, you know, take a look. You know, it doesn't last very long. It's kind of a short little video. Oh, there you are. Okay. I always love this early part because I've got so many screens open. You know, it's like, all right, which screen is which? All right, so you see the back of a guy standing there, right?
Yep.
Okay. All right. All right, then we are on the right one. Okay, so this lasts a whole 4 minutes. Okay, it's a kind of a sped up demo. But notice the size of the piece of paper he's working on.
Amazing.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of fun.
Maisel Lopez.
Mhm.
Where's he from? Cuba?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly where in the world he is from, but yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting,
Yeah.
kind of fun. I guess I need to.
So he was using at least 3 different mediums.
No, he was using one medium.
But it looked to me like he used the spray deal and then the brush.
Mhm.
But the brush looked like it had different types of paint.
Well, it was all graphite, but it was
Okay.
water. It was either water soluble or he took it and he thinned it with like a paint thinner, which may be why he was wearing a respirator, a mask when he was.
I wondered about that, yeah.
Yeah, but it was all graphite.
And it took him at least 3 days because he changed his clothes at least 3 times.
Yeah. I would venture to guess it probably took him longer than 3 days, something that big. So he would be working incredibly fast if he did that in 3 days. So yeah, but again, it kind of gives you some insight. He was also working from a projected image, on his computer. So, I mean, he was looking at that and then placing things. And he, it didn't appear as though he had any kind of grid system or anything down, I mean, somehow he had to kind of measure and mark and place those, the shape of the head and everything else. So how he went about doing that, not really sure right offhand.
So you say it was a projected image on the wall that we could not see?
Well, it was probably on a big monitor or something like that he was looking at.
But it was definitely smaller than what he was putting on his canvas. Yeah, that was remarkable.
Yeah, I would imagine it was. But yeah, having if he had a big monitor back there, like a TV-sized monitor, that he could really zoom in and blow things up, to look at smaller areas of the reference that he was working from. I'm sure that would be somewhat helpful. So anyway, and I'm not recommending that you go out and get materials like acetone or paint thinner or work with charcoals or things like that. That could be necessarily hazardous to your health. All right. But, we do have some alternatives that you can safely work with at home, such as graphite, that's now water soluble. I love that stuff. I mean, it's, I found that to be one of the best things to draw with, just because it is so flexible. And, you can lay in your drawing and then take a brush with a little bit of water on it, and wet areas, and the graphite dissolves, and then you can really use it almost like paint. Let it dry. You can work back into it, or you can take an eraser and pull areas back out again with it still. So it's, if you have some good paper to work on. If you have just regular bond paper, it's not going to take, a lot of abuse. So, you gotta be somewhat careful, with the paper you work on, if you're going to be doing that additive and subtractive process. All right. Anybody got any questions, comments, or anything about what you saw?
How thick of that an amount of paper would you use?
I'm sorry, what?
How heavy a paper would you use?
I'm guessing, in looking at what he's using, he was probably using like a Bristol board weight paper. So, about probably about a 3-ply Bristol board. It was still somewhat flexible, but it seemed to be heavy enough that when he wet it, it wasn't curling or buckling or anything. It laid pretty flat for him. So, you could also use like a extra heavy but plate finished watercolor paper. Okay. But then you're looking at something that's pretty expensive.
Right.
A sheet of watercolor paper that size, that's a good heavyweight, might be, you know, 50 or 60 bucks
Right.
just for the paper.
Right.
So I don't know if any of you are ready to go out and drop that kind of money into, you know, the paper you're working on quite yet. But you know, there's Strathmore Bristol board, there's like double ply watercolor board or illustration board that you can work on. There's museum board, there's all kinds of different papers and things out there that are, you know, the sheets of paper are well under $10. And, you know, a lot of those sheets, if you get the whole sheet, you can take it and divide it into like 4, you know, and get, you know, 4 good size drawings that are, you know, at least maybe like 16 by 20, you know, to work on. So it's not a small drawing at that range either. Okay. All right. So I'm going to start kind of looking at some of, you know, most of these are people that I know very well because well, you know, they're kind of like some of them are like my extended family, actually. Kind of starting off with this lady. This is Allison Doak, okay? And this is, you know, from one of the drawing sessions, probably at Shane McDonald's. And, you know, obviously had a male model, you know, so that's her drawing of him. And, you know, the thing I'd like you to look at with this is, you know, she's using probably charcoal and probably some pastel or some Conte, the white, to, you know, lighten things up. But, you know, she's got a very kind of loose kind of approach, you know, to her drawing. And, you know, she kind of softens like a lot of the curves and things, you know, in the figure, and will build up value. Kind of reminds me of like some of the drawings of like some of the earlier drawings of like Matisse and Cezanne. You know, when you begin to look at the line quality and the value. But you know, nice drawing. And Allison has a studio here in Marietta. It's at the Artist Resource Center. So, her and Shannon, and you'll see some of Shannon's work a little bit later. This is another friend of mine, this guy right here, okay? The tall African-American fellow. His name is Basil Watson. And Basil is from, I want to say he's from Trinidad. Anyway, he's their national sculptor, okay? And, you know, he's located here around Atlanta, does a lot of figure sculpture, you know, and this is just a sample of a piece that he did. Now, where he's at is a fellow by the name of Mark Shatov. I don't know if you've heard of Mark before, but Mark is the guy sitting over here. And Mark is, you know, a pretty well-known painter, does a lot of portraits, things like that, and teaches a lot of classes, you know, in the area. So, you know, he's been here for, you know, well, you know, forever, it seems like. And, you know, he's had classes. He was located over in Sandy Springs for a while. And he may still be, I'm not sure, you know, where he's got his classes now. But this is a pretty good example of, you know, some of the figure sculpture that Basil does. And this would be a fairly small piece for him, but because Basil works, you know, 8 and 10 times life size. You know, he does these really big figure sculptures. But you know, he works in a lot of different scales. But really nice stuff. This is actually one of his pen line and wash drawings. And again, from life, and just very gestural, probably about a 3 minute, 2 or 3 minute drawing.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
As a sculptor using a model, does the model have to be on some kind of revolving floor, or do you have to just move your easel all around it to capture?
Usually what you do if you're working in a sculpture studio, the model is usually placed in the center of the room. There are studios, sculpture studios in Atlanta that have a rotating model stand. And, in some cases, we would have like a little table that you would have your wheel on and stuff, and then you could roll it and change position and move around the model, okay, as you needed to. And that's kind of the way we did it at Benson. So, everybody kind of sets it up differently, but yeah, for sculpture, you need to be able to kind of look at all angles of the model. So putting her over in a corner, isn't really an ideal setup for a sculptor. Okay? It's not really an ideal setup even for a painter, because every once in a while you want to get up and kind of walk around and figure out, kind of what's going on the other side of the figure. Make sure that you get, the weight and everything placed correctly. This is another one of Basil's drawings. Now this is a charcoal, and I've got a couple by him, and there's another one of those ink and wash drawings, and you can tell the difference. This is a little longer, a little more studied. He's really looking at shapes and forms and trying to get a little more of a likeness of that particular model, where these are more gestural. He's not really necessarily going for a likeness of the model or anything like that. He's just trying to very quickly get down sort of his first responses as to what the pose is and what the lighting and the shapes and the forms are. So they're like quick gestural pieces. Lovely little drawing in a sketchbook. This is Bill Strutfrid, I think is his name. Now Bill and I have been kind of talking to each other for about the last 10 years on Facebook. And, Bill's pretty prolific. He gets out and he draws on a regular basis. And, I thought this was a really charming little drawing, from life. These lady mariachis, I guess you would call them. But, really nice gestural sketch. I really got kind of a nice feeling for the movement. They don't feel stiff. They kind of feel like they're moving. These are some of my pieces. This is a brush pen. Okay. And the thing I really like about pens and like ink pens, things like that, one, you can sketch in your sketchbook, and when you're finished, you don't have to worry about it transferring to the other side of the page. The downside is, you're not going to erase any of those lines, but that's fine, because these are like 2 minute, 3 minute gestures, right? They're not long drawings. And you're just, again, trying to explore, the model and, her proportions and movement and, kind of the way she moves. Now this is one of those Prismacolor pencils that I use. A little longer drawing, probably about a 20-minute drawing or so. And I'm pretty sure that one was done at Benson. This one was done at the Atlanta Artist Center. Now this is a Conte crayon drawing, and it's done on a kind of a Reeve BFK is the type of paper that's done. And Reeves has got a really nice soft feel to it. So you can really build up a lot of drawing media on it. It's not like a bond paper that will, you know, clog up after a few minutes because you've got too much material down. So you can keep, you know, working into this and smoothing it and working into it and just keep building up values.
What was the manufacturer of that again?
Reeves, R-I-V-E-S.
Oh, Reeves. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And they've got several different papers, but this is the Reeves BFK. Yeah. And it's really, it's a multi-purpose painter or a paper. It's for drawing, printing, you know, you can even use wet media on it. And it doesn't, it's 100% rag paper. So you can get it wet and, you know, when it dries, it will lay back out flat. Now, if you want to keep it flat, if you're using wet media on it, you know, then go ahead and, you know, just tape it and stretch it kind of like you would watercolor paper. Yeah, this is kind of the Prismacolor again. And that's probably charcoal, you know, on like a piece of newsprint, you know, just a quick kind of gestural sketch. And another gesture drawing. So, you know, again, just trying to get the kind of the sense of the pose and where the light was, what the figure was doing. Again, just a gestural sketch. And again, this is on like newsprint. So this would be kind of like a warm-up drawing. You're just kind of practicing, trying to get the sense of the shapes and the forms that you're seeing. And this would be a little longer study. This is just the torso. And the thing I kind of wanted to point out about this was, now this is done in, pretty sure it's done in charcoal. Because I can see my thumbprint where I lifted the charcoal right off the corner there. But anytime that you're drawing the figure, or really anything, and you've got a curve, right? It's not a flat plane. I would tell you, you know, I would always encourage you, take whatever you think you see, right? However curved you think it is, make it about, you know, 15% more. You know, really push the idea, you know, that something is round. You know, so if you've got like a piece of clothing or something that goes around the form of the leg or the arm or the torso, you know, really push those curves. You know, exaggerate them, make them more than, you know, you might think they really are. And the reason for that is that you know, your brain always wants to straighten lines out. And so, you know, you've got to kind of force yourself to really look at and see, you know, how curved things really are. And when you begin to understand it, then force yourself to really, you know, push that curve. And don't try to straighten everything out. Okay. Now this next young woman, and she is a young woman because she's probably 30 now. This is Caroline Annandale is her name. And this is kind of like a woodblock print that Caroline did. And Caroline is a really fascinating young artist. She and I used to have coffee together in Marietta when she was about 15 or 16 over at Starbucks, and she would bring her sketchbooks over and we would sit and look at her sketchbooks and talk about drawing and stuff for a long time. And she ended up going, well, she started off going to Georgia State, and then she went to Kennesaw, and I think she got her undergrad degree there, and then she went over to Europe and she studied, and now she's living in Europe. And I never know what part of Europe she's living in because she seems to move kind of on a regular basis. But, you know, she's got some really interesting work. Here's a I think it's a charcoal sketch. But she does, you know, some really, really interesting work. These are some figurative pieces that she did well, she was in Germany at the time. And I think she's in Germany now. But again, you know, these are just small, little kind of quick drawings. And, you know, she kind of works this way where she'll do a lot of drawings and, you know, concept type things. And then she'll take it and then she'll translate that into a painting. And she's a very good painter. Very, very good painter. So, again, you know, the human figure. So,
you got somewhere you'd like to go? I go right now.
Whole series.
All right, I'm going to sew while you listen. When you're done, we'll do something.
Now, these were titled, you know, from a figure session in Barcelona. So evidently she was in Spain when she did these. And, you know, there's some nice pieces in there. You know. Again, these are probably quick, like maybe 3 to 5 minute drawings at the most. Particularly love that one. You know, it's, you know, it captures the gesture, some of the sense of the light and the form, and at the same time, it's a very kind of abstract, you know, quick little piece. Yeah, this artist I've known for probably the last 3 or 4 years. This is Carrie Barkham. And so this was drawn from a plaster cast of the Pieta, and she was just doing a study of that. This is one of her drawings of an owl. You know, it's got a nice gestural kind of quality to it. Oh, okay. I popped up again for some reason. I don't know why. Okay. Another one of my figure studies. Probably done at like the Atlanta Artist Center. And that's, yeah, that's probably Prismacolor. It's either Prismacolor or graphite. And then this is a friend of mine. This is Charles, not the drawing, but the artist who did this, Charles Young Walls. A lot of people confuse us because our first name is Charles, you know, and yeah, we've had this thing where people have been confusing us for the last 10 years or so. But you know, Charles, very good painter and a very good artist. I think he's living south of Atlanta now, and he has a studio down there, and he's teaching classes. Let's see. Somebody had a chat. Let's see, what is this? From Ladisa. Thanks. Okay. This is an artist who I have only heard of. Okay. And I think it's a she. Okay. I can't guarantee, but her, I think it's a her. You know, Chin Cheng Hung. And this is a drawing of local model Catherine Pica. And Chin is a professor. I think she's a professor, I want to say at the Savannah College of Art and Design, okay, here in Atlanta. And, you know, teaches figure drawing and things, you know, but, you know, beautiful drawing, you know, of Catherine. And, you know, got a little bit of who she is there. So, another artist that I've been, you know, and this is a young, kind of youngish, you know, African-American woman. And this is one of her drawings. I really like her drawings because they got a lot of personality. and you know, she's kind of an interesting character when you start looking at the variety of her work, you know. But she has kind of a graphic style to her work. Really, really nice stuff. This is a guy I actually went to the Academy of Art with. His name is Dominic Gomez, and you know, he's at a life drawing group. You know, very kind of loose gestural drawing. A lot of what Dominic does is stuff like this, you know, where it's kind of fashion oriented. You know, so he does fashion illustration. You know, but really nice kind of use of line and you know, kind of exaggerating the figure and movement. You know, figures don't look stiff. You know, so he's got a, you know, always a lot of action. You know, moving along. This is a Russian artist, I think. Say Omsky or Omsky. I don't know really much about her, but you know, beautiful drawing. You know, really nice sense of form. You know, musculature. You know, through the figure, and then the hand moving forward. You know, so that was kind of a difficult drawing, you know, to really pull off and make that really work well. But you know, she handled it very, very well. Again, I'm not really familiar with, can't really remember who did this, but you know, beautiful drawing, and I'm kind of thinking it's probably a Conte, you know, and maybe a little bit of charcoal, but again, you know, really nice sense of form, you know, across like the abdomen, the legs, you know, nice observation, nice use of line, you know, how the line just sort of fades in areas, particularly along the areas where light is hitting the figure. And then, you know, the opposing line on the other side, you know, it's got a lot of weight, you know, to it, and the value and the thickness of the line, you know, tell you, you know, that there's pressure and weight, you know, in those places. So again, pretty nicely done. You don't see many of these out there these days, but and that's probably a classical drawing of the landscape. So somebody posted that. That was on one of the drawing sites that I go to. And this is probably, again, it's European, probably around the 1800s, you know, when this was done. But if you look at the technique and, you know, how it was done, you can really learn a lot, particularly about drawing trees. You know, how you know, you see the trunks, and then at places you lose them, you know, because the foliage is in front of them. One of the things that I've seen in some of the pieces that, you know, we look at often is that you know, somebody will do a tree trunk and they'll do it all the way through, and it's like there's nothing in front of that tree trunk. All the foliage is on the other side of the tree trunk, and you know, trees just don't do that normally. So,
Charles,
no, yes.
Charles, would she draw the trunk all the way up and then cover it with the by putting leaves and or the grayness around it so it disappears?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Or you could, if this was done in charcoal, which I think it probably was, or a Conte, then you could just take your finger and you could rub out areas, you know, and then, you know, put in texture things for, you know, leaves, or find the shape or the mass, you know, of the leaves coming in front of the trunk. But it gives it a more dimensional, you know, three-dimensional, you know, look and feel to it.
And you have a framework to work around.
Yeah.
Framework.
Yeah. Yeah, you could do it either way. You know, a lot of times for me, you know, when I'm trying to work quickly and I'm out, you know, sitting down actually drawing a tree, I'll draw the trunk up until, the foliage starts, and then I'll start looking for big masses and shapes. And anywhere that I see the trunk kind of popping through where there's an opening, then I'll draw that in, rather than go all the way to the top. Just because, again, drawing it all the way through and then going and having to erase it and everything else, takes more time. But also, with a lot of papers and things like that, you can't really get rid of that ghosted image of the trunk, running through, so.
That one's also interesting because it's got another trunk up at the top of one of the trees, which
right. Yeah.
That's
where this kind of comes down and connects, to the base, but that's what I was saying. So you lose it, like right in here, because the foliage is coming through, covering it up, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's drawing what's actually there and not what you think a tree is. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because when we start talking about trees, we all kind of think tree trunks, and some are straight and some are crooked. Again, this is a fairly classical drawing, and again, look at how this artist has used the light and the shadow, and it's got a very nice soft feel to it. He's drawing a female form, which you associate with being soft, right? And and he's kept it that way. He's he hasn't really made a lot of real harsh, hard lines, big changes in value. It's just this really nice, kind of quiet, little subtle drawing.
I think that lady's head looks too small for her body.
Well, if with the foreshortening going on and the fact that her arms are up here, kind of covering most of her head, I don't think he's too far off.
No, it looks like to me he's done what I normally do, which is I run out of room.
Right.
On top of the bottom, and I make that part smaller.
Yeah, and there may be a little of that going on there.
Yeah.
So there.
It looks like he's sitting down and she's standing up. He's drawing her from a distance.
Right.
It looks like he's drawing up. That's why the bottom part looks larger than the top part.
Well, he probably was no further than probably about 6 or 8 feet away from her.
Mm-hmm.
And
but down lower, she was higher and he was lower.
Yeah, she was up on a model stand, and he, and yeah,
so it looks like to me.
Get that sort of foreshortened kind of feel to it. It's a really lovely drawing, and we could spend a little bit of time on this one, because I think the thing that makes this drawing so nice is what's not there. Okay, and what I mean by that, this artist has suggested, that this woman is in a chair or sitting, and she's got this dress on. And again, look at how he's kind of pushed the curves, in around the neck, the form of the figure, and he or she, could be a she. They've given you just enough to suggest, all of that, but they made a very, very conscious choice that the only area that they were really going to bring to any kind of finish was really right here, in the face. And really it's just the front line of the face, because the rest of it is, again, it just kind of goes back to kind of a suggestion. And so, in looking at this, your eye is drawn right to that face. So.
Question?
Yes.
Is she wearing some kind of hair ornament?
It looks like, yeah, she's got probably something in her hair.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
A kind of a hat, maybe?
It may be. It may just be something, to, like tie her, like part of her hair is tied back or something. I'm not really sure.
It's a beautiful model.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. Let's see how big we can get this before it falls apart, like about right there. Okay. Yeah. But I mean, even here, he could have messed around and put, a lot of transitional tones and things in there on the face, but, he put just enough. And, when he got or she got what they were looking for, they stopped and the drawing was done and it was enough. Now, one thing, and we're going to talk a lot about this afternoon, is in a lot of the drawings that I see you guys do, the eyes never sit, into the skull. They just kind of float out there on top of the face. And I want you to really look at, how this person drew those eyes. And notice that, the eyes are not this outline kind of almond shape. They have a shape to them. But, there's definitely a stronger line on the top here, right under the eyelid. And then the lower lid, you see the shape of it, but, the value of the line, and it's much softer. So again, it's not the same. There's a couple of examples of people, when they sent in their drawings, it's like they overemphasize that bottom eyelid, in a lot of cases. And you don't really need to do that because it flattens the whole eye out, and you really want to tell everybody that eye, it's a round form. And so, he or she, again, is pretty successful. Again, how they push the curve, in that upper eyelid, and really made that kind of rounder. Okay. Same thing with the lips, again, pushing those curves, the nose, that bottom plane. Again, you can kind of see the curve with how the tone is laid in there. So you could learn a lot from that drawing, just studying that for a few hours.
I have a question about that.
Yeah.
The lines, you always say don't outline or use one continuous line. I mean, the shoulders got, several lines, and it looks like a lot of outline that you always keep telling us not to.
Well, what I tell you is to vary the line. See? To vary it. All right. You can have, you can have some outline, but at some places you're going to lose some of those edges.
Okay.
Like, for example, if I can find my cursor, there it is. Okay. Like coming off the shoulder here, see?
Right.
They've come in and they've made several marks in there, and it's a darker value, right? But then it comes down to maybe where the fabric, there's a fold or whatever, and it's catching some light, and it just goes away. They just
okay.
And then they pick it up again. It's got a little more tone, and then a little less, and then So, they've given you kind of a variety of line work there, and the line work, and I'll point this out. It's a good example of it. If you notice, the line quality of the line on the top of the arm is very different from the bottom of the arm, right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah. And so what this artist is telling you is that this arm and the hand is laying on some kind of surface, and that the weight of the arm and the dress is pushing down, on that surface that it's laying on. So you get a stronger, darker line on the bottom where it's making contact with that surface. And then you get this really nice kind of lyrical, moving line on the top, right? kind of the same thing is true here. Again, look at where, they really kind of emphasize the bend, in that wrist, from the forearm into the hand, to really begin to push that thumb back, away from you and let that forearm come forward. Here they emphasized it, but you see, they've offset it. You've got a stronger accent here than a stronger accent on the bottom side. Again, to tell you, there's weight. Then again, there's weight in here. So, for the most part, I'd say that the line work and things that this artist used, they've been fairly conscientious about, the shapes and the proportions, but also how they used that line. And they kept it to a minimal, right? Just enough to suggest that she's wearing a dress and, the shapes and the forms in it. And notice, this is not a one continuous outline all the way down this figure, right?
Right.
See, it's broken in places. So, one shape moves slightly, over another, and it tells you, again, there's a shape there. So.
Okay.
Okay. Here's another, pretty good classical example. When you look at how the line was used, look at the use of the line around the elbow, to really push that out from from the figure, behind it. And then look at what they did on the other side of the figure. So again, they're breaking inside, like right here at the deltoid, to tell you that that muscle sits on top of the underlying rib cage right in here. And, sometimes it's just those little subtle, you just break it just inside, just that little bit, and it creates this illusion of form, right? Here on the top of the arm, where you have compression, the neck is up against it, right? And the hand and all that stuff is coming together, and the weight of the head laying on that arm, right? And, he probably could have done something, he or she could have done something, along this line, but, they chose to emphasize this area and then kind of let this area stretch out and be, kind of just go away. And in fact, let some of the fabric or something just come in front and cover it. And then look at the way they brought that knee forward. So, this nice curve around here, and then see it comes in. And it's real subtle. Let's see if we can blow this up. But right here, the line. See, it's not just a continuation. See, this actually breaks right in here from the bottom, moving upward. And so what it does is, you see it takes this part of the leg and it puts it in front of this kneecap by just breaking that line just that little bit. Okay. You see kind of the same thing here in the foot, this toe kind of comes back. And again, he breaks it just inside a little bit, and then you get, the, kind of the base of the toe, kind of where it swells and moves outward. And then it hits, the arch of the foot. And see, again, it just kind of disappears, but that even the light, breaks across that, and then you get this line to the arch moving back and up the leg. And so, just these little changes in line can give you a lot of information about the form and where, what's in front of the other.
What kind of pencil or charcoal is this?
I would say this is probably a charcoal pencil, and then they've used either some Conte, like white Conte, to begin to add some of the light in it. This was done on a toned piece of paper, so the paper was gray, originally. And so their charcoal is, you know, a darker outline, and then that Conte is, you know, where they're putting in the light, you know, trying to build up the form. And you can see pretty clearly where they've laid this in, that they're using what we call, you know, hatching or cross hatching.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, to build those up. Okay. You know, if you could just study like the hair, you know, and how it's tied up with those fingers, you know, and how to draw hands. And it's really, really a lovely drawing. Let's see if he's got anything else. Yeah, even this hand, you know, again, really nicely, you know, competently drawn. Okay. We have this watercolor. Yeah. And the reason I put this in here, because we're not really talking about painting, but again, in looking at a lot of the things that you guys sent in, you're not really getting that feeling of, you know, the features like sitting on the surface of the face, right? It's kind of like the features kind of flat on a flat plane. And the front of the face isn't really a flat plane. Look at, if you will, how these eyes are laid in and how he's really kind of pushed, you know, that curve. So he's really emphasized that. And what it does is it tells you that that eye is a round form under there. And so it gives some sense of volume, you know, to that eye socket. Okay. Everybody kind of see that? Yeah. Now here's a drawing where that's not so successful. Okay. And why? You know, look at what they did. Okay. You know, they've got everything in the right place, but again, they sort of overemphasize, you know, this bottom eyelid here and these bags under the eye. And so what it does is it kind of flattens that eye out a little bit. And it's not quite as soft and as round. You know, they overall did a pretty good job, you know, trying to indicate some sense of form and volume to the face. The hair is kind of a mess. Again, you know, they're trying to do every strand. And, you know, with hair, you got to really kind of think of the mass and the shape of it. And then after that, using some kind of change in value, you're going to be able to indicate where the light and shadow are on it. And that's going to tell you what the form of the hair is. So, yeah, this, you know, I put this in here because that was a good example of what, you know, a good way not to do it. Okay. And here's a good way to do it. Again, and this is probably either a graphite or a charcoal. And, you know, so they've done a nice job at rendering, you know, the form, the underlying form of the face. And they've got the features on there. And for the most part, you know, they work, you know, with the nose, though they could probably bring that out a little bit more. And the mouth, you know, they seem to kind of be attached to that, you know, that surface. And really about the only place that it really begins to bother you a little bit is really here, again, you know, on that bottom line of the eye. You know, they're kind of over-emphasizing a little bit. There's no way that could be a consistent value all the way across there. Again, because it's a round form. So part of it, you know, has got to be lighter. Part of it's got to be darker, right? Depending on the direction of the light. Because it's not a flat shape. It's a round shape.
I have a question on this one, please.
Yeah.
I'll go back to the young lady. The black background, dark background on the left-hand side of the picture. How do they get that so nice and smooth?
They probably used like a cloth or a rag.
Okay. Well,
kind of rubbed it back.
It still doesn't work for me.
Still doesn't work for you. Well,
I use chamois. I've used a cloth.
Yeah.
It just never achieves that nice, consistent, background. I don't know.
Okay.
Practice, I guess.
Well, practice, but it also may be the type of paper that you're drawing.
Well, that's true too. I've tried a new paper here for this last one I sent you this morning, and I don't know that I'll use that again.
Yeah, but this was probably done on my guess is in just looking at it and how smooth it is. It was pretty done on a piece of Bristol board.
Okay.
Kind of a heavier weight Bristol board. And a lot of that background was probably laid in rather than, with a pencil, maybe with like a block of charcoal and then softened, so you don't get like a lot of scratchy lines in it.
Okay.
Yeah. Another way they could have done is they could have taken the powder, right, from the charcoal or the graphite, and on a brush and brushed it.
Okay.
And
I'll experiment with that stuff.
Yeah, one of the big kind of failings in drawing is that a lot of people don't experiment with those medias enough to try to use them in different ways. Kind of like that young guy today, who was doing that graphite drawing, and he had to wet and thin, some graphite powder or something. It was either water soluble graphite or regular graphite that he had added like mineral spirits to airbrush, some of that in, which gave him, this really kind of nice soft effect, that you're not going to get that by sitting there, working with a pencil. Okay. So you've got to kind of experiment, with different ways of applying those media, that's not just the obvious, I'm going to take a pencil and, make some marks and then try to blend it out, because you may not be able to blend it out enough to really get the effect you want. So you may have to, start being a bit of a miser and collecting like the dust, from the bottom of your drawing board, into a container so that later on you can take a brush and, dip it in it and brush it on rather than, make marks.
Could he use his air sprayer?
Yeah, he had to wet it in some way and get it into kind of a liquid form. Just putting the graphite in the sprayer and you trying to spray it dry, you could probably do it, but it would probably make a real mess because it's really going to go everywhere. Okay. But yeah, if you put just a little like liquid in it of some sort, then it will come out and it will stick and adhere to the surface, of whatever you're working on. So, anybody else?
I thought it was a photograph.
Yeah. It's a rather tight kind of photographic rendering. You can kind of look, in some areas like this here, and it gets a little gritty looking. Because he didn't finish that as much as he did really this area right in here. And I don't know how intentional that is or whether the paper started kind of failing on him. Because it looks like, maybe the paper lifted right there on the shoulder because it gets a little crusty looking.
Right.
So, him, her, whoever. This is a beautiful little piece. And again, this is a good example of, if you're trying to do a child, and children, they're kind of like flowers, they're these incredibly difficult things to draw because they have these, weird proportions to their face. But the big challenge is really, how do you get them soft enough, and keep them soft enough? Because, you know, you start, you know, painting in those features of things and you overstate them just the least little bit, and you've aged them by 10 years.
Yeah.
So you really got to be very careful and, you know, very delicate, and, you know, keep them very, very soft. Again, look at the eyes and how, see, the emphasis is on this, you know, top eyelid, right? And, you know, you really clearly get the shape. And then on the bottom, you know, you get a slight indication of the shape. But again, look at the difference in value. If you squint your eye down, see that bottom of that eye, you know, the bottom eyelid almost goes away. See? You know, it's really subtle. This is a lady I know pretty well. Her name is Janet Knight. She's here in Atlanta. And this is one of the figures that she does. She mainly does female figures. And she's probably working on that very same linen board that I ordered and have been playing with lately. I really like that stuff. And she's an oil painter, but you know, nice kind of modeling of the forms, you know, and skin tones. So, yeah, this is Lori Woodard, and a coyote. So this is closer to the finish. This is kind of how she started off. So you know, just, I think this is kind of informational. See, you know, she kind of found, you know, where sort of, if you follow the jawline back, where would it kind of hit the shoulder and neck, so that she could kind of position those correctly. So, you know, she's checking the relationships of where things are, you know, and then putting them down. A beautiful little charcoal sketch of somebody that a lot of us know, and this is Catherine Pica. She was the model, and this young lady drew her. And again, you know, it's kind of a nice drawing. Other than, you know, and as John pointed out, you know, I'm not a big fan of coat hangers, and this is pretty much so a coat hanger, you know. And what I mean by that is that the line work, you know, on the light side of the legs and arms are just about equal to the shadow side. And notice how it kind of just flattens the shape out. See, so it kind of works against, you know, if you're trying to put in tones and values, it actually works against you, and it kind of flattens the drawing. So, you know, now she's done most other things, you know, really well. You know, like, again, you know, breaking one shape in front of another. You know, she's seeing all of that, and she's getting it in there, even, you know, the hip and how it comes in front of the rib cage and the torso. You know, she's got all of that there, but then with the line work, you know, she's kind of worked against herself and flattened it all out. Lovely, kind of quick gestural drawing. This is by an artist by the name of Margaret Dyer. And Margaret, you know, she's here in the Atlanta area. She lives somewhere out west of Atlanta now, kind of heading toward Alabama, you know, in my direction. But she moved out there a good number of years ago now. But you know, this is a quick kind of gestural figure drawing of hers. And still, you know, she gets a lot of variety in line and value and movement of the figure. Now, Margaret does, you know, absolutely stunning pastels. You know, if you really want to look at pastels and somebody who uses pastel really effectively and well, Margaret would be a good person to go look at. You know. But just looking at, you know, her, you know, figure drawings, you know, they're really, really nicely done. You know, you know, she sees proportions and forms really well and gets them down pretty quickly. So it's a good thing. Yeah, this is a really beautiful drawing. You know, I'd be happy with that drawing on just about any day. So, you know, nice job. This is somebody we know, Marty Brooks. Okay. Now, Marty drew this at the Academy, or not the Academy, but the Benson Center. And this is Catherine Pico. Catherine actually had it posted on her Facebook page. And, you know, Marty got a pretty good likeness, Catherine. Now the proportions, a little bit, you know, a little bit off. And when I say that, what I mean is, you know, when I'm looking at the figure and knowing Catherine, and I think most of us do, you know, Catherine has a lot of weight in her legs and her hips. And Marty has sort of diminished them, you know, and emphasized the shoulders and the upper part of the body. And she just kind of needed to kind of thicken up, you know, those legs a little bit more and make the feet a little bit bigger because they're coming towards you. And, you know, she would have been just about dead on at that point. But the model was happy with the drawing. That always counts. So it was a nice drawing. This is somebody you guys probably never heard of, Pablo Picasso. This is one of his early, you know, drawings. And, you know, for a guy who ended up doing a lot of abstraction and stuff like that, you know, he had a good understanding of how to draw, you know, how to use line, and where to use it. So pretty good, you know, pretty good example of drawing. This is Phil Carpenter, and I've talked about Philip a couple of times. He teaches over at Chastain Art Center, and you know, I met him and, you know, got to know him when I was teaching over there as well. And what Philip does is he does colored pencil, and he'll do this on a very large white sheet of paper. And you know, I mean, you would think that you were sitting there looking at a pair of, you know, shears. But, you know, just really, really beautiful. You know, he does a lot of objects. I haven't really seen Philip do people before. But, you know, if you begin to look at, you know, how he layered, you know, the work, the pencil work in there. Really,
how does he keep the background so clean?
Slip sheet.
What?
A slip sheet. You know, a piece of paper, you know, that he'll, a lot of times, you know, he'll work on these, like, you know, on the easel, vertical, and he'll take like a piece of tracing paper and he'll cut like a hole in the middle of it. And then the area he's working on, you know, he'll move the hole over and tape it in place so that his hand and his arm isn't, you know, rubbing up against the paper. And that keeps it, you know, really nice and clean. And, you know, he's very meticulous. You know, he works very slowly, very carefully. And, you know, he's, you know, color pencil is kind of like watercolor. You know, you start off with your lighter values and you're building up to your darks, you know. So in these dark areas, you know, this may have 15, 20 passages of color over it, where, you know, the lights maybe only have like 1 or 2, right? So this is Rose Franzen, and the model is Gordon Shriver, who's here in Atlanta. And Rose was, I think, maybe doing a demo for the, you know, what is it? The I want to say the Portrait Society of Atlanta. So yeah, she came in and she did a demo. It may have been at like one of the portrait conferences here too, that they had for a couple of years, came to Atlanta. But she definitely nailed Gordon, you know, definitely it's him.
She put a lot of emphasis under the eyes, didn't she?
Yeah. So if you really look at the, you know, you got the shadow here, but what she did is she pulled out the light, you know, right along that eyelid there. And notice here on the other eye that's in total shadow, see again, that upper lid is darker in value, and then it's not as dark in value on the lower. So she didn't treat it as an outline. She didn't make kind of like an almond shape.
She didn't what?
Make kind of like the shape of an almond.
Mm.
You know,
is that a pastel or is that a pencil?
I think it's charcoal.
Charcoal.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's charcoal. And she's probably got a little pastel or Conte or something in there for the highlight. So here's a lifelong friend of mine. This is Shane McDonald. Some of you probably met or heard of him. And this is from, actually, this is from last weekend, you know, a figure study that he did. And it's kind of unusual for Shane, because Shane usually works in oil, and charcoal, and graphite, and he handles all those medias really well. I haven't seen him use a lot of watercolor. And this is watercolor, pen line, and charcoal, you know, in various places. And just a really, really nice, you know, study, you know, figure study. And, you know, he's got, you know, he's got all the background of the studio in there too. So why he put all that in there, I'm not sure, but still nicely done. This is pretty typical of some of Shane's charcoal drawings. And he focuses mainly on doing portraits, but he's doing a lot of other things these days, you know, which is good to see him do. But, you know, he's always been really, really good at portraits. And again, you know, look at how, you know, the actual features of the face, you know, they sort of emerge out of the face, right? They don't feel like they're just stuck on top. You know? And again, you know, look at the change in value, you know, around that round form of the eye. So, you know, it's slightly darker on the inside because the light's coming, you know, from the left. There's more shadow under the upper eyelid and a little bit of a highlight or very little, you know, indication of the bottom of the eyelid. So, you know, it helps describe that form and where the light's hitting. This was kind of an unusual piece for him. And I haven't seen this piece. I actually kind of want to go to a studio, and if he's still got it around, take a look at it. And this is in process, but it's a very large charcoal drawing. And these figures are life size. So, you know, that's a big sheet of drawing paper. You know. And so one he's got rendered, one he's still working on, you know, but again, you know, if you look at, you know, how he's kind of laying in, you know, these values in kind of a rough way, and he's going back in and blending, smoothing it. So, you know, my guess is that this is charcoal, not graphite. You know, nice kind of quick, you know, figure drawing. Probably about a 20-minute drawing. Now this is another lady who's in the studio where I used to teach my classes. Her name is Shannon Meadows. This is a fabric study that she did, and it's in charcoal. And again, you know, she's got all the shapes. It really becomes an abstract painting when you start looking at it. You know, figure drawing that she did. Again, probably 10, 20-minute figure drawing. Really like these. These are kind of fun. And they look like they were probably done with a brush pen, you know, or a brush immediately. And again, just studying, you know, the direction of folds and fabric, you know, as, you know, like a pair of pants or the sleeve of a shirt, you know, as the arm is bending or moving. You know, they're not real subtle, but they, you know, they get the idea of the movement across. Some gesture drawings from that earlier model. Female gesture drawings. And again, you know, these are like 2 minutes. Now, 2 minutes doesn't sound like a long time, but you know, it's you can actually get a lot done in a very short period of time. Here's some line drawings that she did of shoes. Okay, how many of you have drawn your shoes before?
I have.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah, shoes are fun. I mean, you know, they're fun little studies, and you know, with particularly like all the different types of like hiking shoes, camping shoes, you know, running shoes, things like that. You know, there's a wide variety of them out there to choose from. So, but you know, when you look at these, you're not going to make a mistake of thinking that these are shoes from, say, the early 1900s. You know, these are definitely contemporary modern shoes, right? Because we've all got a pair of, you know, running shoes in our closet, you know, back there somewhere. Here's a little pen line sketch she did of a chair. It's kind of fun, you know. Okay, this is a beautiful little figure drawing. Sherry McGraw. Sherry teaches all over the country. She does a lot of plein air events and you know, figurative events. And it looks like a little bit of Conte charcoal drawing. Interesting character here, Boris Karloff. And he, you know, most of us grew up watching his movies, right? This is done by an artist by the name of Thomas Key. And again, charcoal drawing with maybe a little bit of pastel or Conte. Really nicely done. Just nice control of value, light, shadow. I wish I had a bigger, you know, a bigger or more high resolution photo of this. Because it's hard to kind of appreciate without really being able to zoom in close on it. Okay. But again, you know, notice the change in value, Rebecca. Okay.
I'm hearing you. Thank you. I thought you were talking to me.
Okay. But yeah, it's you know, darker under the eyelid, the upper eyelid, and then, you know, a little bit of light. And you know, you do get, you know, maybe some shadow or tone depending on how many wrinkles and things you got under your eye. But you know, on women, you know, you're taught to not emphasize those. On men, it's okay to do it because it just gives them more character. You know, got a little more water under the bridge. So, again, you know, kind of a really beautiful little, you know, sketch. This is a Japanese artist, and it's done, I think it's probably done in charcoal. But notice how, you know, at some point when he was setting this drawing up, he came in and he kind of found the shape for the eye socket and just kind of laid in a tone there. And then he may have lifted out a little bit of it wherever the highlight was. And again, you know, he's pushing these shapes and forms, you know, like the upper eyelid, he's making it a little more round. You know, just kind of push the idea that, You know, this is a three-dimensional shape. It's not a flat drawing. But, you know, really beautiful little drawing. Yeah. So I don't know about you guys, but that's all I got. Anybody got any questions about any of that? Anything that we saw?
Yeah, this is Bob. Thank you. I have taken that drawing that I submitted this morning, and the paper's got so much tooth in it that I drove out some pastels.
Uh-huh.
And it makes it's huge. I'll send you a copy of what I've been playing with here in the last few minutes.
Okay.
And you can see, you'll see the difference. That
Okay.
made a huge difference.
All right, good.
Is Shannon Meadows from Atlanta? Is she an Atlanta artist?
Shannon Meadows.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Well, her and Allison had that studio together where we took our class.
Oh, yes. Okay.
She was
Yes.
the red-haired lady.
Yeah, I thought I recognized her when I remember her paintings and stuff. Yes.
Right. Yeah, I didn't show any of her paintings at the show.
No, I know,
But yeah, she did. She does a lot of the like cocktail painting.
yes.
Yeah.
Cocktail drawings. Yes.
Yeah. Actually, when I was going through Facebook this morning, I came across a photo of her, and she was doing a class, and she was actually had like 6 students, and they were all kind of, you know, around this table, and they had the cocktails out there.
Okay.
You know, and they were all painting like some martinis and things like that.
Yes.
But she had the 6 of them, and they were all around the table. And then she had 2 other people, I guess they came in, you know, I guess they were bartenders or something, and they were actually making the martinis for them to paint.
Oh, that was nice.
So they had the whole, you know, table set up, you know, with
Yes.
the vodka and the gin and everything back there to make the martinis. You know, it's like, I want to go to a class like that.
Well, if she approves your painting, then you can drink the drink. You know.
Yeah, you know. But yeah, that's nice. You know, it's like, you know, you go to a painting class and everybody gets their own martini to paint. You know.
That's right.
I hope it was after the breakfast hour and more towards the lunch.
Yeah, it probably was. You know, but you know, but Gene, it's like they say. You know, the sun is sitting somewhere in the empire, right?
Exactly. But my stomach is.
5 o'clock someplace.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. Anyhow, all right. Anyway, that's
Charles, are you here next week?
Am I here next week?
Yes.
I think I am. Why? What's going on next week?
I don't know. Kermit said he was going to be at the center there all week. He's not doing classes. It may just be for whatever center he's at. But he thought it had to do with COVID shots, vaccine.
Oh, yeah, because they're okay. Yeah, and they may have pulled him to go in and help out. But,
right. Yeah.
Do you know if they're having COVID shots at Benson?
Yeah, they've got some scheduled. I don't know exactly when that is, but yeah, they were supposed to be doing them there as well.
Do you know if you have to go be a member or have to go through the Fulton County Health Department?
Well, from what I gathered, Andre put out a call to everybody who was a member of the center.
Right, correct.
Yeah, to find out how many people had gotten their COVID shots and how many people needed them. And then he was trying to plan time and, you know, set it up so that, you know, for a few days at Benson, you know, people could come in and get their shots.
So did they have to have an appointment or could they just go?
I would imagine that you would have to set up an appointment, you know, with them to do that.
And how would you do that? By calling Benson or what?
Well, yeah, if you need it, yeah, then, just call the Benson number and talk to Ron and just tell him, you know, you hadn't gotten your shot. If they're going to do them there, that you'd like to get on the list for that. Okay.
Thank you.
So yeah, Ron is there and he's answering the phone for Benson. It's either him or Sabrina, but you could talk to either one of them, and they can give you more information about, you know, how they're actually going to structure that and do it. You know, they don't share such things with me. You know, I'm just the art teacher. So anyway, all right.
You get a
Have
call
to stay
for
focused.
to get your shots.
Pardon?
I said it looked like they would have let you call them so you could get your shots.
Oh, well, I don't need my shots. I've got my shots.
You were looking for them.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's good information to know. You know, the only thing that we've been told, you know, at the county level is to get people to go to, you know, the county website and sign up. And I did. And I got my second shot yesterday. So I don't know how many of you are still needing them,
But we know people that might.
yes. Yeah. You know, anybody you can get, you know, to get vaccinated, you know, by hook, crook, or otherwise, do it.
A friend of mine got theirs at Walgreens this week. He said it was just real, very efficient, very fast, and
yeah. Actually, Maria and I went over to the Walgreens close to us here on South Cobb Drive, and we signed her up. So she's on the waiting list now. She's 51. As of today, by the way, today is her birthday.
Oh, oh my God! So happy birthday for us.
Yeah. So I'm gonna take her to dinner this weekend.
Yes, you have your sweet young thing.
Yeah. She is a sweet. But yeah, we've got her signed up, so we're hoping that they'll call relatively soon. From what I understand, I think they're lifting restrictions here in the next week or two, and it's going to kind of go to, you know, a much bigger, you know, group of people. So, but hey, we're making progress.
definitely.
Okay, do not turn anybody down.
No, don't do that. Okay. Anyhow, so we'll be back here at 2:00. You know, send me some drawings, things like that, and we'll, you know, we'll take a look at them. Okay.
Okay. See you later. See everybody.
Bye, Charles.
Thank you.
right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Charles.
Thank you.
Happy Friday, everybody. Bye.
Bye.